Hey guys, so I have had a lot of questions since my last update, mostly about the girls and the situation, but some just about general adoption stuff. So I really want to answer those questions for you. I am going to do my best throughout this week to get up videos, whether it be in the morning or in the evening, whether it be car vlogs or actual nicely edited, not super duper long rambly vlogs like this one. So the biggest question I get at this point is, what was the first meeting with the girls like and how did it go? So I will talk about that first meeting, and depending on where I'm at with time, I will go beyond that. And if I'm just running a bit long, then I will talk about other meetings and our process, how it's going, and how we're going to progress in another video or two or whatever. So we first met them a few weeks ago, probably three or 4 weeks ago now. It's kind of hard to keep track because everything is kind of like 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and it's been here and there in terms of what most people would feel like. But we met them in their school. We went to technically just observe them. We weren't allowed to speak to or make any kind of contact with them unless they made some kind of contact with us first. So literally we were just there to watch them, which sounds so creepy, but they wanted us to get a really clear picture before moving on with them of where they were at in terms of playing with other kids and being with other kids and seeing all that. So we walked in with our social worker, and she said hi to the girls and they waved back. And then she said, these are my friends. And we first walked around to see their classroom. And I don't particularly have anything super against this school, but I'm not super fond of it. It just seemed a bit dark and kind of dingy and not super clean, for lack of a better term. And by that I don't mean that it wasn't immaculate. I don't expect that out of any preschool because it's a preschool. But it just, to me, it seemed dirtier than it should. So I wasn't fond of that. In their art projects, you could tell it was very much they weren't allowed to cut, or they were told where to glue things, because it wasn't messy art. It was, finger painting part was messy, but the rest, the cutting was perfect and on the lines, and if there was a face, the eyes were in the perfect place and the nose was in the perfect place, and there just wasn't anything different about any of the projects. So that kind of bugged me, because I really, in terms of art and stuff, I really believe that kids need to be able to, sure, every once in a while do an art project that is kind of led through and perfect art project, but otherwise I really think they should be able to just kind of do their own thing and express themselves through art. And if that means that instead of having a normal colored scarecrow, you have a scarecrow with a blue face and an eye on its chin and his nose way up in his hair and whatever, that's fine, whatever. It's not a huge deal. But that's me. So I wasn't super fond of all that, but we don't have to keep them in their preschool. So then we went back out and we were watching the girls, and they were kind of playing, and one of the little girls noticed that we were out there and watching them, and she had been going down the slide, so she went down the slide again and did that whole 2, 3, 4-year-old, I fell down onto her knees, and total fake fall, and looked up and went, I fell down. And it was just so cute, and my heart just kind of burst a little bit. And so, my social worker and I kind of laughed, and Jeremy laughed, and social worker and I went, yeah, you fell down. Oh no. And of course, 3-year-old, when they get attention for doing something and it's funny, they'll do it again. So she did it a few more times and it was really cute. I fell down again. It was cute. And then the other little girl was a little bit more shy, a little bit more slow to warm about things. But it's quite funny because their personalities, as much as the first little girl was, and this is Bop that I'm talking about. So their code names are Veggie and Bop. So Bop had been the one going down the slide over and over. And as extroverted as she was that day, she's not introverted, but she is very much the calmer one. They're both very high energy. But Veggie was kind of, they had this little box with big circles cut out of it so that they could walk through this box. So she kind of was in that box and like playing hide and go seek with us and kind of figuring out what was our deal. And she kept smiling at me, and she finally came over and went underneath. I was leaning against the wall with my legs a little bit out on the ground, and she went behind my legs and went in between and was like playing with my legs. So since they had made contact with us, we were allowed to kind of play with them and talk to them. So I kind of reached down and tickled her, and she started just giggling and laughing and squirming around. And so, since I didn't know them, I stopped, and she said, no more. And I went, okay. So we kept tickling, and then Bop came over and did the same thing, and then she was crawling around in Jeremy's legs and just in and out of all of our legs. It was really cute. And from that point, they wouldn't really let us out of their range. So that was good because they had liked us and because they had gotten on easy with us. That was good. The one thing that I was worried about with all of that was the fact that they were so okay with us and we were total strangers. And that made me worry about their ability to truly attach. When you're talking about abused, neglected, substance exposure in utero, whatever, with these kids, it's different than you would hope with like a kid that's your friends. If you walked in with their mom and they said, hey, this is my friend, and they played with you, that's great. And with these kids that have been neglected and abused and all that, it's almost a little bit scary because if they aren't a little bit freaked out of strangers, are they truly attaching for one, and are they attaching improperly for another? But that has become less of a worry because they are attaching well to their foster parents at this point, which is good. And I'll kind of go into a little bit more of that later. But just kind of a general, it's seeing the fact that, when we're around and they're around, they'll play with us and have a great time with us, but if something goes wrong, they check back in. And, if, for instance, we had cake the other night, and Veggie wanted more cake, and her foster dad said no, and she started crying. And, while we were talking to her, trying to talk her down out of her fit, her foster mom came out from the bathroom, and she ran over to foster mom for a hug and to complain that she didn't get any more cake. So that was a really good sign, because they're really attaching to somebody, and that's amazing. So anyway, that's just one example, but so that's less of a concern now. And from there, our next appointment was, excuse me, sorry, I'm exhausted. Our next appointment was to go see the psychologist that they've been working with. So every kid in the system goes to therapy. And usually it's just either a social worker or a therapist, not an actual like psychologist. But right now we're just tapped out. Our resources around here are just kind of tapped out. And it sucks because there are so many more kids in the system, but there's we're in kind of a low of people who are wanting to foster and adopt. So it really bites, and because of that, all of our resources are just kind of tapped out. But I digress. So because of that, there is a psychologist on staff at our agency who, when they had been removed from their home, she had said, I'll take them on. And they were a more severe case. So she just said, I'll take them on. That's fine. So we're working with her, and they're working with her. And that will actually continue when we get them, and then possibly after a formal adoption. But we'll see where that goes. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, our next meeting was with the psychologist and the people who have done some state testing to kind of judge their cognitive abilities and any potential damage that might have come from any possible exposure in utero. So I will get into that in another video because I'm almost at 12 minutes. So I am sorry this video was long, but I hope that kind of painted a good picture of our first meeting with them. We just kind of fell in love at first sight. So yeah. My girls. Anyway, I will talk to you all later. I hope you're all doing well. Sticky dust to all of you who have just found out you are pregnant, and baby dust to all of those of you who are still trying, and good labor dust to quite a few of the girls in the community. And I will talk to you all later.